Do you like lollipop-sucking witches with body proportions bordering on the insane? Do you also like going on murderous angel rampages using a katana? Well, I hope you do, because today I'll be reviewing a little game called Bayonetta. And it has all of that and so much more. Bayonetta's closest cousin, without a doubt, is the Devil May Cry series, because they actually shared a director. So if one reminds you of the other, it's really no coincidence. Yeah, if you like Devil May Cry, you'll probably find a whole lot to like about Bayonetta as well. I did my entire playthrough on the Nintendo Switch, which, you know, it just came out recently, so I felt like playing it again. It was actually my second playthrough. Anyway, if you play it on the Switch, you have the option to see Bayonetta cosplay as some cool Nintendo characters. You can see Princess Peach, Princess Daisy, Samus, or even Link. Which, admittedly, this isn't a huge deal, but each costume does offer its own unique cosmetic perks. So it's kind of just fun to mess around with, and something you wouldn't get to see otherwise. Anyway, this game is wild, over the top, and above all else, a whole lot of fun. Anyway, let's get started. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Bayonetta is freaking hot, and the studio wasn't afraid to make her into some sort of sex symbol. A lot of the cinematography lines up shots directly on her breasts and panties. She also sucks on lollipops, her special moves resemble dominatrix stuff, and her ultimate ability, appropriately called her climax ability, renders her almost naked because, for some reason, her hair also happens to double as her leather-looking bodysuit, and also can be used to create giant spider demons or dragon demons or other monsters. I could see where some might object to this over-sexualization, but I happen to be their target audience, so to me, all this seems like it was just done in good fun. Never did I think the overt displays of sexuality were tasteless or anything of the sort. So yeah, Bayonetta is a very sexual figure, and quite frankly, I liked watching her shake her butt around as she demolished angels. For a 10-year-old game, the graphics look pretty good. Not great, as some of the polygons are pretty boxy, and it never quite lets you forget how old the game is. But they're still all passable, and the spell effects even look pretty good. To criticize the graphics any further seems unfair, because I know I've simply been spoiled by more modern games. I remember playing Bayonetta when it first came out, and it did look really good. The sound is pretty good as well. Katana slices, explosions, and gunshots all sound nice. Sometimes a Japanese game can suffer when the English voice actors are brought in, but that isn't the case here.
That bridge in these heels? I don't suppose I can call a cab to get me to the island.
Because the voice acting is done exceptionally well. The standout performances are Bayonetta herself and her sidekick Luca, who's in almost every cutscene.
Oh, did you see that? I told you there was nothing to worry about.
Mummy saved us.
What?
Hello there, Cheshire.
Shit!
I'm also going to have to give some bonus points out to the sound design team, because they included the remix of Frank Sinatra's Fly Me to the Moon. This was incredibly unexpected and really, really awesome. So thumbs up to whoever made the decision to include that. It was a very memorable track, and I found myself singing it in my head for days afterwards. The story. As disheartening as it is to say, Bayonetta isn't perfect. And the weakest element by far is the story component. Not only is it fairly convoluted and hard to follow, but after 2 playthroughs, there are still parts that I'm unclear on. For example, did Bayonetta actually kill Luca's father? Or was the Lumen Sage responsible for that? Was Jean childhood friends with Bayonetta or her mother? I mean, Jean looks pretty old, she has gray hair, so was she friends with Bayonetta's mother? And just why was she working with the angels in the first place? Wasn't she supposed to be best friends with Bayonetta? I'm sure I could find these answers by, Googling them, searching the internet, but I feel like this cutscene should have been a bit more clear on some of these details. Because honestly, I have no idea. Although the overarching story was a bit confusing, I found the cutscenes to still be immensely entertaining. Whether it was watching Bayonetta kick ass, Luca cracking jokes,
For fuck's sake, that's overdoing it!
or even the dark-skinned demon guy reveal bits of lore about the world.
You bring me enough of these halos, and maybe I can buy a ticket to space. Always wanted to be a bald space marine.
I never found any of the cutscenes to be dull. They were all pretty entertaining. It's just a shame that the whole story boiled down to the revival of some ultimate divine monster that, quite frankly, wasn't any scarier or more difficult to deal with than any of the other bosses. I mean, sure, it was a bit bigger, and you have to fling it into the sun to kill it or whatever, but gameplay-wise, it wasn't that difficult. The gameplay. Bayonetta's gameplay revolves almost entirely around its combat system. Sure, you walk from point A to point B, and at times you even solve some really simple puzzles. But, I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. 95% of the time, you're fighting angels, and that's totally fine, because Bayonetta's combat is a fluid dance of skill. There are buttloads of combos, special moves, and even the dodging is pretty fun. Each one of these serves more or less its own unique purpose as well. While the game can be completed by either button mashing or only utilizing 2 or 3 combos on the easier difficulty settings, this simply won't cut it on hard and above, and you'll find yourself quickly forced to learn how to properly implement each of these combos and abilities. In addition to the wonderful hack and slash gameplay, there is also 2 motorcycle chase segments and a Space Harrier style shooting section where Bayonetta hijacks a missile and literally rides on it as if it were a giant flying skateboard. I did mention this game was over the top, right? Right? Neither of these additional gameplay modes quite live up to the kick-ass core combat, but both are welcome because they provide nice changes of pace and keep the beat-em-up segments from getting too stale or repetitive. Unfortunately, near the game's climax, I did experience some very low frame rates when there was a lot happening on the screen. I'm not sure if this is because the Switch's hardware couldn't handle a 10-year-old game. I mean, gosh, I hope not, right? Or if it was because the port wasn't perfect, which seems more likely. But either way, it was pretty annoying to watch the action dip down to about 5 frames a second, especially considering the game's age. My final verdict. Positive. Deeply engaging combat system. Positive. Above average voice acting. Positive. Stylish cutscenes. Positive. Likeable characters. Positive. Gameplay variety. Negative. Story not as clear as it could have been. Negative. Heavy frame rate drops at times, especially during the later boss battles, which, should be pretty important moments. Bayonetta is a stylish hack and slash that manages to set the bar for all future entries in the genre. Although not perfect, it manages to do a lot of things right and places fun above all else. It is without a doubt a worthy successor to the Devil May Cry series, and I can easily give it my stamp of approval. That's why I'm giving Bayonetta a final score of 8.5 out of 10.